We have spent the morning climbing. We are not fully at the top. As you can see behind me, there is still a ways to go. But we've come up through woodland, we've come up through grassland, and now we are also in kind of a nice grassy area up here. There has not been much rain at all. There is not a heck of a lot that is flowering, not even the grasses, but it's a beautiful view behind us. We are over 2,000, about 2,100 meters, I think, at the moment. Maybe that'll add another 40, 50 if we get up to the top there. But the views are stunning. The weather is a little bit on the chilly side with a breeze, and you can just see off to this side here, there is essentially like misty cloud that blows in, but it's not affecting us or anything like that. So I'm going to make a push to get up to the top, and we'll see what the views are like from there, and we'll see what height we get up to there. Hey, in this installment today, we're going to talk about the last of the vegetation habitats that we went through in the Mafingas. These are namely the grasslands and the scrub. These are montane grasslands, sorry, and montane scrub. These habitats are on the tops of the ridges and the crests predominantly. We're looking at an elevation of 2,000 plus meters in most cases. And as the name would suggest, they're mostly grassland and other herbaceous shrubs, or other herbaceous plants, sorry. And then in the scrub areas, we get smaller woody kind of shrubs, these woody ericas, sometimes proteas, but then mainly xerophyta and Disododendron linatum, sorry. These habitats are usually colder than what the woodland was, not by much, but a bit. You get more kind of breezes that pass through across this habitat. So more wind beaten, definitely. You got quite a bit of exposed rock in some areas, or even just rocky terrain, where then the grasses grow in amongst these rocks, which from afar give it this kind of nice smooth look. But up close, you actually then get a true understanding of how rocky these crests and ridges are. I'm now at the top of this hill. I am not at the top of the Mafingas in total. I think that's over 2,300 meters. I'm just shy of 2,200 here. I'm 2,182. You can see behind me this windswept erica, which is being beaten up quite a bit. But then again, nothing up here is going to be too tall. We've also got some protea species, some xerophyta, and surprisingly, a member of the Melastomataceae family. I'm not sure which. It's not a Desotis. The other one with the D, I can't remember. But the views are spectacular. It was nice to get up here and find a little Ramulia, I think in the Iridaceae family. And other than that, it's very rocky. It's quite scree-ish, and things are just growing in between the larger rocks and the smaller rocks, and grasses predominate. But again, we just might be here a little too early. I don't know if there had been more rains by this time of year, that might have changed, but at the moment, you just have to make do. But otherwise, it's fantastic. I'm really enjoying myself. And despite the pain in my legs, it's been well worth it. Our trip and the fact that there wasn't as much rainfall at that time of year meant that there probably wasn't as much in growth when we were there in mid-January than what would normally be in a regular season. That said, coming across the Mafinga endemics of Polystachya mafingiensis and Euphorbia mafingiensis, which was formerly Monodemium mafingiensis, was really, really nice to see. And to see healthy populations of both of these plants was very encouraging. We came across it in the 3 places that we did enter into the montane grassland and scrub. So those were definitely highlights to see both of those endemics, and to see them, as I say, in really good numbers. And then things that I wouldn't have expected. We came across a Raffianacme species. I think it's turned out to be Raffianacme madiensis. And some things that you would kind of not be too surprised at. Gladiolus atropurpureus was growing quite well on some of the grasslands, mainly in the areas leading up to the ridge crest, but was smattering around, and very nice to see it kind of sticking up and flowering above the grasses and the other herbaceous plants that we came across. Getting up onto the top of the ridges, it's a bit more of a sparse environment, much more rocky, more scree-like, I would describe, with a smattering, again, of the scrub species. The ericas were up there quite a bit, and the xerophyta, again, Disododendron. Once again, these things were very widespread up in that area. And I should actually mention that the Disododendron lanatum is also an endemic to the Mafingas. So even though it wasn't really its time of year to be flowering, we did come across one flowering shrub of it when we were walking up that on the first day, and that was really nice to come across and photograph. The tops of the ridges give an absolutely fantastic view. But they are much more wind-beaten. Things usually grow much more compact. Came across this lovely little plectranthus with almost these kind of jointed stems. Very, very interesting. Almost like little segments in the way that some cacti have segments and stuff like that. And with one flower at that point in time open. But I did collect it and pressed it, so hopefully that will be identified. In parts of the scrub areas, there were these interesting large rocky outcrops upon which you had the species of Xerophyta and Disododendron growing. And what it seemed to happen was that the roots of these shrubs then seemed to form almost like this mat that covered these large rocky outcrop areas. And in that matted root system, kind of soil and root system, debris, I suppose, material that must have built up over decades, if not even longer than that, you then had this other substrate that we found specimens of Euphorbia mafingiense growing in there quite happily, the chlorophytum, as well as ferns. I'm not sure which species of fern it was. It was just starting to unfurl at that point in time. But this seemed to be a medium that certain things could grow in, but that other things like grasses and whatnot were excluded from. So this ends up being quite a nice, interesting other little section of the scrub areas that would be much more interesting to see than at different points of the year, and to see how it actually develops as a habitat for some of these other herbaceous plants. The montane grassland and the scrub areas are very interesting habitats. I think there would be actually a lot more to see there in kind of like a regular rainy season, effectively, where it starts on time and there'd be more growth by the time that January rolls around, as it was that we came at this time of year. It has a lot of different niche areas where you have those kind of rocky outcrops. You have the open grassy areas. Most of them are on slopes, although some areas the grassland does kind of flatten out a little bit more. You then have the intersection between the woodland and the grassland, where you get this kind of changeover from the typical tall trees of the woodland through smaller Opaca rubensii trees, then into this kind of protea shrub layer before it gets into grassland. So you have quite an interesting area right there that there would be for plants as well. That said, we only had the amount of time that we did. We got the year, the seasonal rain this year that we did that was less than ideal. However, it was still fantastic to see. There are a lot of montane grassland areas and scrub areas in the Mafingas to explore, and I'm sure that a lot of vegetation will kind of exist across most of those ridges and crests. But you never know, there might be still things to find there that haven't been identified yet by science, and or that haven't just been listed for occurring in the Mafingas at the moment. It is a beautiful habitat to walk through. I really enjoyed having that time to go through it, and I would love to be able to see a lot more of it in due course of time. So that's definitely, again, high on the list of things to see for another trip in the future. But with that, I'm going to end this video. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more content like this. And we will talk to you again soon. Cheers.